Hello everyone, I am the Weather Dude. Welcome back, and today we are talking about Invest 93L that has just developed off the coast of the Carolinas and has now become Tropical Depression 2. Now before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe as it does help my channel grow, and we're just going to get straight into the video here. So here it is, Tropical Depression 2, formerly known as Invest 93L. I just like calling it Invest, it just flows better off the tongue for me. So Invest 93L, now Tropical Depression 2, the 11 o'clock update from the National Hurricane Center, 1,006 millibars of pressure, 35 mile an hour sustained winds at the surface, and it's moving at 21 miles an hour to the north and east, which, if you know about the tropics, 21 miles an hour is pretty fast for a tropical system. Maybe not for a car, but for a tropical system, that's pretty fast. All right, so here's the current position right here. Winds are gusting to 45 miles an hour, so we are seeing tropical storm force gusts, but we need tropical storm force sustained winds, all right, not gusts, to be able to name it a tropical storm. But they do have it as a tropical storm, 45 mile an hour winds with winds gusting to 60. All right, this is by 8 p.m. tonight, and then 50 mile an hour winds on tomorrow morning, so June 15th, 50 mile an hour winds, winds gusting to 65, and maybe staying the same strength or maybe weakening a bit towards tomorrow night. Maybe winds could still gust past 50, 60 miles an hour. All right, this might affect some islands off the coast of Nova Scotia here. It could even affect Nova Scotia itself. It's some cloudiness and some showers and some wave activity, I'd say, for Cape Hatteras. But really, from Norfolk due north, I think we're good. From Norfolk to Maine, maybe some wave action, so always be cautious of that and rip currents. But as for actual precipitation and wind, I don't really think that's going to impact the East Coast. The greatest threat, I would say, would be Nova Scotia and maybe Newfoundland. All right, so St. John's up there as well. And then maybe towards the Gulf of St. Lawrence. All right, so those are probably the areas I'd say that have the biggest threat from this. All right, but this is still, all right, this still could impact people on land, so we're definitely still going to have to talk about it. And here you can see the tropical storm force wind probabilities, all right? The islands there off the coast of Nova Scotia, you guys can see some tropical storm force winds, 30% chance of that. But you can see, obviously, this is where we have the highest chance of winds. And towards Nova Scotia, if you guys, or even Newfoundland, you guys, probably Tuesday and Wednesday would probably be your day to see those tropical storm force winds if you were to see them. All right, and here's why this really developed, because you can see off the coast of the Carolinas near that Gulf Stream, you can see where the water is like 3+ Celsius above average. And even as it moves in this direction, right, near Nova Scotia, look at that dark red that we see. Like, the water is really above average. And if it can stay on the track with the Gulf Stream, that can help, obviously with the warmer waters, that could help the system develop further. All right, wind shear is a bit of a problem. Now, as you'll see in some of the modeling, it won't really depict it on this map, but the storm has kind of somehow barricaded itself from the shear. Usually we see higher category hurricanes do this, but you'll see like the shear is kind of blocking off the wind shear for right now. So it's kind of sitting like right in here, so some low to moderate shear, but there's much higher wind shear in northern Atlantic. All right, and it's not going to go away magically, but the storm could barricade itself a little bit more. All right, so here's the storm on the National Hurricane Center's map, and here are the sea surface temperatures, right? Like kind of where it is off the coast of the Carolinas. Sea surface temperatures here are very warm. I'd say very warm for this region, right? We got 82 on the Gulf Stream, 82, but then you go towards Kitty Hawk and points north, we fall to the low 70s. So if it can stay on the Gulf Stream, which it could, at least for the short term, this is where the warm water is. This is where we have 80 degrees plus, or at least 79 to 80. All right, and that's definitely enough. We really only need to develop a tropical storm, right? If we had low wind shear and low dry air, or even none of those two, I'd say we could still develop a tropical system in 77-degree waters. It can definitely happen, but because the wind shear is still a little bit of a threat, I think having the warmer water is a bit of a kind of like a backup for this, right? So 80-degree waters. We definitely got that. That's definitely a check mark right there. But wind shear might be a bit of an issue. So here is the system. You can see, look how it's spinning, right? You can see the spin. I mean, it's gaining some tropical characteristics. This almost looks like more like a nor'easter, actually, now that I look at it. You can see the low center is actually over here, according to the National Hurricane Center, right? Even though you would think it's like right in there, right? But all the activity is over like to the east side of the system. So it's kind of like what we call an eastern lotus system. Now, if the center was like right here, I would say it looks a bit better organized, but the center is actually off the coast of the Carolinas. And then we have your tropical activity, or your convection, I should say, sitting right there on the eastern side. So looking at where the storm is right now, All right, so again, there's your low center. There's Cape Hatteras right here. Really not too far away, so maybe some clouds and showers for Cape Hatteras, but again, like I said, it's pretty eastern loaded, so we're not seeing too much convection. Maybe some clouds, that's about it. All right, and looking at the model track guidance, models they're definitely taking this far out in the time. Like in 5 days, it's already almost in Europe. Like that's pretty good for a tropical system. But some of these models, or most of them actually, have a Newfoundland landfall in 48 hours. Now, here's the thing. Even though the National Hurricane Center, as you saw by this map, see how there's a white S instead of a black one? That does mean it's a post-tropical storm, as opposed to the black S means it's an actual tropical storm. So when it hits the white S, which is the post-tropical storm, even though the winds, they do have it going down to 45, sometimes, or most of the time actually, this can combine with a jet stream or with a cold front, and the winds actually go up. Even though it loses its tropical characteristics, the wind speed increases dramatically. So we could see winds 60, 70 mile an hour plus for Newfoundland if it were to make landfall there, and then kind of curving east, maybe towards northern Europe, potentially. Who knows? I mean, why not? This hurricane season's already starting off pretty active, so I mean, why not? Now, looking at the GEFS model tracks, again, they're all pretty much in agreement for the next 36 hours, really not going to head towards the East Coast like a pivot last second like Hurricane Sandy did. Now, 48 hours out, however, a lot of the models, even a northern Nova Scotia or possibly even a Newfoundland landfall in just 48 hours. So if you're in Nova Scotia, if you're in Newfoundland, please definitely prepare. Even though just because you hear the words post-tropical storm out of my mouth doesn't mean that it's not a serious threat. It's still very serious. All right, and looking at the GEPS model tracks, again, also pretty much going right towards Newfoundland. They have been moving a bit slower, however, maybe getting there in 60 to 72 hours from now, as opposed to 48. So we're talking, we're talking in about 48 hours, potentially 2 days. So that would be like between Wednesday and Thursday for Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. So between Tuesday and Thursday, because the National Hurricane Center kind of said Tuesday. So between Tuesday and Thursday, you definitely want to prepare. Get prepared now, actually. So here is some of the model guidance or for the strength, 40, 50, maybe close to 60 knots. So that's like 55 to 65 mile an hour winds. Not quite a Category 1 hurricane. I don't think it will get there. Now, we could see Category 1 hurricane force winds if it were to hook up with a jet stream or a cold front and lose its tropical characteristics because it's going to move over colder waters as well. So we could see non-tropical storm force winds or non-hurricane force winds. Right, but even if the winds do get pretty strong, that's not called a hurricane, but still, the difference between a 75 mile an hour post-tropical storm and a 75 mile an hour hurricane, there really is no difference, except that the post-tropical storm is less organized. There's still going to be a lot of wind damage. I definitely do want to stress that. So here is the high-resolution model, the HER, what we also call it. You can see there's a storm right there to the south, and you can see there are some clouds and showers, like I said, over at Cape Hatteras, but those are probably getting themselves wrapped up right now. And look at the storm. Look at it as it moves to the north and east. It grows a lot, all right? And you can still see there's definitely some activity there closer to the center. And then it kind of moves its way out past Nova Scotia, and then there's kind of like your jet stream, your front, kind of like lifting up. Because remember, the jet stream is kind of going like this because we're seeing some cooler air through the next couple of days through the northeast and the mid-Atlantic. So that jet stream is going to help pick up the system, maybe give it some more wind power, but in turn, it's going to take away tropical characteristics, if that makes sense. Because it's also going to be moving over colder waters. Now, look at this. This is early Tuesday morning, and these are the surface winds, right? This proves it. 10 M. That's 10 meters. That's basically surface winds. It's like 20, 30 feet up. All right? You can see those purples. That's a pretty strong, like that's right around 50 knots. That's about 60 mile an hour winds. All right? And even further than, like, look at this. Look at these deeper pink colors. I would say that's pushing 64 knots, which is hurricane force winds. Now, like I said, we might see hurricane force winds, but that might not be that may be deceiving because that might not be a hurricane, might be post-tropical. But again, both are still very dangerous. So maybe closer to a hurricane, according to the high resolution model. All right, here is the HWRF model. As you can see, look as it moves to the north, you can see the really expanding. We still got some banding features developing on the eastern side as well. But watch what happens as we head towards Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon. Look at those deeper colors really start to come together right here. All right, so maybe 130, 180, closer on the Vort scale, if that's what we want to go by. All right, and then it continues to trek to the north and east. There's the island off the coast of Nova Scotia right here. and pretty much passing right by that. I mean, the low pressure is sitting like right there, so definitely be ready if you live there, even on the coast of Nova Scotia. And then look at this. Look how it just kind of like comes in ripples. Like there's your energy right there, and then it makes landfall in Newfoundland, and it kind of just disappears, or it dissipates, if you will. All right, so that is your HWRF model. And if we look at the wind speeds, these are, again, sustained wind speeds. Look at the reds. The reds here, as you can see, max wind 55 knots, which is indicated right there. But again, there's really nothing on the northeast or northwest side of the system. It's kind of like eastern loaded, as I've said before. All right, continues to move to the north and east. This is Tuesday, like 11 o'clock in the morning-ish. There's your purple, 67 knots. That's a Category 1 hurricane, or a post-tropical storm with hurricane force winds is also possible, right? But then you go, passes through Nova Scotia. We see tropical storm force winds right there, pretty much not too far off the island. And then it makes its way into Newfoundland, tropical storm force winds, maybe 30, 35 mile-an-hour winds. But again, these models could change. It could definitely end up being more than that. Then it passes through Newfoundland, and then maybe off to Europe. And then it just kind of stops right there. So far east trek after that. Now, as I was talking about earlier, how the system maybe could potentially barricade itself. You know how I was talking about that? Well, here's a GFS. I'll even zoom in a little bit more so you guys can see. You can kind of see right now how there's blue. There's definitely a lot of red up here for shear, but there's a lot of blue surrounding the system itself. Right? So that's how it's barricading itself from the wind shear right now. And I'll show you as time goes on. Notice how we head towards the next 18 hours. Still, we see some blues, even greens, right? That's not too bad. 20 knots a storm can handle. But notice how the wind shear starts closing in, it starts wrapping itself around, all right? And then by the time it heads towards, say, Tuesday morning, notice how the center now is all green and yellow and orange, and that's when the wind shear has pretty much engulfed the system. It can't protect itself anymore. Also, it's also getting picked up by the jet stream, as you can see right here, moving in sort of this direction. So that is Invest 93L, maybe towards Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. I'd say East Coast, the biggest thing you guys have to worry about is potentially some waves and rip currents. But Nova Scotia and especially Newfoundland, I'd say Newfoundland has the biggest threat here over the next, say, 2 to 3 days. All right, again, back to the National Hurricane Center map, you can see right here, kind of like if you were to extend this track out a little bit further, it would probably go right towards Newfoundland and St. John's. So definitely be careful if you live there. Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, definitely be prepared. Thank you guys for watching. I'll also be having a video out on Invest 92L, which could be Claudette. This could be Bill, because this one is probably going to develop a little bit faster than 92L. And then another system out off the coast of Africa. So be sure to watch those other two videos as well. I am The Weather Dude, signing off. Till next time, I'll catch you guys in the next video.